Welcome back to WHYY's Neighbors and Newsroom Summit, building collaborations that better inform and engage South Jersey. This event is made possible by the Geraldine R. Foundation and from viewers like you. I'm Christopher Norris, WHYY's Managing Editor for Community and Engagement, and we have reached a point for our final conversation, forming collaborations between residents and reporters. Let me introduce our panelists. Terry McCollum, founder of BoroTV. Miguel Martinez, a freelance news reporter for WHYY. Kenny Burns, our South Jersey WHYY reporter. April Saul, a freelance Camden reporter who writes often for us. And Dr. Amy Dean, WHYY community curator for Willingboro. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Let's start with you, Terry. BoroTV is a local production company that documents important press conferences and meetings and other newsworthy or civic conversations. In what ways would you like to work with the news media in your area, including WHYY?
Well, Chris, first let me say thank you for having us here on the panel today. And I have to say that in answering that question, one of the major things is doing exactly what we're doing right now. Just being included, being part of panels like this is a great way to interact with other media sources and also to collaborate. I believe that aside from this, just being a point of contact in my community, I'm grateful when people reach out to me to get the insight on different things that are going on in our area. It's one thing to see media sources come into the community and do what they have to do, but to be able to be a part of that process, to be able to be reached out to and spoken with, to receive information and to bounce ideas is a really good thing. It kind of reminds me of when people are public servants. For example, people who are in office or are police officers, how one of the main requirements in most communities is that you live in the community. Why? Because if you are a resident or have been a resident in that community, you know more about the community, you know more about the people in the community. So why not have someone as a point of contact in the community whenever you need to get information or share information?
Thank you for that. April, you grassroots content creators like Terry, in most cases have no problem getting residents to talk with them and give them tips and sources because, as he said, they are viewed as part of the community rather than an institution covering the community. Do you think there are do you think there are lessons to learn in trust and community building from grassroots content creators like Terry?
Oh, sure. I have a Facebook page, Camden, New Jersey, A Spirit Invincible, and I've got like over 20,000 people following it. And I get so many of my tips just from my people in Camden who contact me that way. So yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for that. Kenny, what about you? And then I'll go to you, Miguel, and then turn it over to Doc. Is there lessons, Kenny, for you to learn about building community and trust from grassroots content creators like Terry?
Absolutely. And I think that this is an important part of the industry, especially now in the age of having so many sources to go to, right? Whether it's a blog or social media. And then on top of that, for example, I live in Trenton, but I don't know what it's like in Camden or Willingboro. And so working with residents of those towns and of those cities, I get a perspective that I normally would not have being a non-resident. And on top of that, we could share ideas and information, especially in New Jersey, where a lot of the issues, we face a lot of the same issues. Sometimes it's different, but it's good to have that collaboration.
Yeah, Miguel, what would you think? I mean, what type of lessons do you want to learn from people on the ground in communities who are producing content? And in a lot of ways, people like yourself, you're also on the ground, an independent content producer. What are the lessons that you want to learn from others, and what are the lessons journalists can learn from you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a lot to learn from whether it's a regular individual citizen of the community we are reporting on or a content creator like myself. There's a lot to learn from each other, especially when we live in that community. I've lived here in Camden for the past almost 11 years, and getting to report in my own community, I constantly get to, meet my neighbors, which I wouldn't be able to if I wasn't in this field. So being able to hear the voice right next to me is very important to me. And I absolutely get to learn just by being involved in Facebook groups, even things simple as that, getting yourself involved in meetings that necessarily doesn't mean that you're going to be reporting on it, but that you want to hear what is being said, and just follow up from there. And maybe perhaps you can find stories that you wouldn't be able to hear otherwise.
Quick follow-up, Miguel, and then I'll turn it over to Doc. Do you find that your neighbors are more likely to trust you than a reporter from a TV station or a radio station?
Oh yeah, and I think I personally kind of bring that up, that I'm here from Camden, and I want to learn more about you, because I live here, but I don't get to see everything, and I say that when I report here in Camden, that I'm from Camden, and I think people are more willing to talk to me, because whether you or not, people from the outside, they will perceive people from the outside that they don't understand our concerns here, but knowing that I'm from here, it might open our conversation more, and that's really my hope, that people take that into consideration.
Thank you for that. Dr. Dean is helping me co-moderate this panel. Doc, floor is yours.
A question for all of the panelists. Thank you, Chris. What do you think about the idea of inviting members of the public to some of the editors and newsrooms meetings? I'll start with Terry.
Thank you, Dr. Dean. I think that is something that would be very beneficial, because people would be able to see the process, bounce ideas, and just being a part of the process, getting to know those people who are in media, who are representing their area. It's a good thing, and I can't see it being anything other than productive to do such a thing.
Okay, thank you, April. What do you think about bringing neighbors into the editing and newsroom meetings?
Well, I'm just one person, so I don't really have meetings, but people are sort of constantly coming to me with things, and I feel like the difference between me and like the people who parachute in and then leave again is that I feel very accountable. And so when I put something out, I know I'm going to hear about it, and I know I'm going to see that person again. And I think that's something that I really appreciate. I know this doesn't exactly answer your question, but I was thinking back a few minutes ago, and I even when people come down on me, like I really like that exchange. And I think, and people also seem to be so surprised sometimes when you're responsive. Like they don't even, they've sort of come to think that, like, media people aren't going to answer them. So I think some of those things are key.
Thank you, April. Kenneth.
I'm going to co-sign with April and Terry, and I'm going to add, I'm surprised it has not happened sooner. I feel that in a lot of ways we have built the ivory tower of journalism that needs to come down. At the end of the day, we serve the public, right? We inform the public of what's going on. Well, over time, somehow, some way, there's like a line between us and the public that we report to and are held accountable to. Because if I make a mistake, I hear about it. Same with April and same with Terry. So yeah, let's come on in.
Okay. All right, Miguel. And then I'll ask, do you think that any of this would jeopardize news? But Miguel, if you could answer that first.
Yeah, I think when we can't bring the public into our newsroom, how about bringing the newsroom to the public? And I think WHYY is, it has been doing a fantastic job with this, where they have done community events where there's no mic being recorded, there's no cameras being recording the stories, but rather connecting with the community and doing events like this one, where we talk about the process of making news and how we can make that process even better. I remember going to an event with WHYY at the Crack Center here in Camden, where they brought community people, whether they were leaders or a business owner, who just wanted to be there in that event and learn more about the process of making news. So when we can't bring people into the newsroom, how about bringing the newsroom into the community? And I think WHYY is doing a fantastic job in that end. So absolutely, there's a lot of benefit on making partnerships with the community and in the newsroom.
Definitely benefits. Do either or any of you see anything that would jeopardize the news gathering process?
I have to say,
Mm-hmm. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I have to say that I wouldn't see anything that would jeopardize it, but instead, I think that it would increase the quality of news in general, because just being able to get people who are on the ground, who know what's going on in their community, and having them have the opportunity to share with newsmakers what's going on. The thing is that a lot of people are not so approachable, or they don't feel like newsmakers are very approachable, because a lot of people who make news or news reporters reach this certain celebrity status where many people look at them as celebrities because they're seen so much on TV, and then news becomes more about entertainment than the actual quality of sharing information about what's going on. And so a lot of people feel as though I can't approach them. It's almost the same thing as trying to, approach Beyonce or Jay-Z. And they look at that and say, this is the reason why most people reach out to the news. They feel like they may not even get a response, or they won't get a response, because they feel as though some people have gotten to a certain status where we're just so low on the totem pole that we don't want to be interacted with. We don't want to be spoken to. But yeah.
What do we have to lose by having people come into the newsroom and tell us about what's going on in their neighborhood? That's how I look at it. I hate answering a question with a question, but at the end of the day, I only feel that it makes the product better and gives us more information and helps put a credible face on what is going on in a community.
If I can, Doctor, just want to jump in. First of all, I did not expect everyone to agree on this. I was waiting for someone to say, no, that's not how it's done. So I'm pleasantly surprised. April, why do you think, I wrote down what Kenny said, the ivory tower journalism that needs to be torn down,
Right.
and what Terry said about it increasing the quality of the journalism. But why you are not just a freelancer in your own right and a content producer in your own right, but you have spent time in mainstream newsrooms. Why is this concept so hard to comprehend industry-wide?
It was very frustrating covering Camden for the Inquirer.
Mm-hmm.
And even sometimes for other mainstream media. I would think part of it is I was dealing, and like I say this as a white woman from suburbia, Chris, but I was dealing with suburban white editors quite a bit who I don't think really understood some of the issues in Camden. I was also dealing with newspapers that were afraid of depressing readers. So if I wrote something grim about what was going on in the city, they were afraid of that. They didn't feel like they had readers or advertisers in Camden. I don't know. I just know that I've actually wrote about trying to cover some of these things for mainstream newsrooms before, because it's tough. I don't think they always see it the way I see it, having spent as much time there as I have. And there's not enough minority people in newsrooms, that's for sure.
Miguel, what we've talked about a lot today, and what April just kind of mentioned, is everything that we've talked about today, and even the concept of this summit, of having someone like Terry McCollum and Kenny on the same panel, in the same conversation, in the same space, is really thinking about flipping journalism on its head. It's really thinking about the future of journalism. And we've heard about bringing the public into the editors' meeting. We've heard about bringing the newsroom into the community. We've heard about having citizens teach and train journalists on trust building. We've heard about a two-way relationship between neighbors building trust in themselves to prove that they're reliable to the journalists, and the other way around. What's your hope for the future of journalism, and what role do you want to play in it, Miguel? And that's something that we can kind of all go around in. And Doc, I would love for you to answer that question too. But you first, Miguel. What's your hope for the future of journalism, and what role do you want to play in it?
So I think I'm the youngest on this panel, so I might be in this field for a little longer. But there's a lot. I have a lot of hopes, and one of them is to educate the public. I think in the previous segment there was a lot of talk about how we can educate the public, by simply knowing how to say off the record, and knowing that we're not going into this community. Some of some journalists are not going into this community to critique or see all the bad things, but also look at the positive things. So one of the hopes I have is to educate the public, and that comes also, creating a new generation of journalists. I was lucky enough to be part of WHYY Media Labs, which is again another positive things that WHYY is doing that creates a new generation of media tellers that understand the community engagement part of journalism. That is very important. So my hope is that we get to collaborate more with the public and also create new opportunities for younger generation of journalists.
Thank you for that. And shout out to the Media Labs. They're a huge part of our operations here. We're teaching young people and allowing them to interact with media. And in 45 high schools in Philadelphia, we're currently looking to expand in South Jersey. Shout out to Craig Santora, who's our education director. Dr. Dean, what's your hope for the future of journalism? What role do you want to play in it? I mean, you're already playing a huge role as a community curator, but I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more.
I actually have to piggyback on Miguel a bit. I love to hear the voices of our young people. And I think that if we educate them and give them the platform to share, that they'll take it so much further than we could ever imagine. But I'd also like to see something intergenerationally where the seniors and the younger people are coming together to share their perceptions as well as information so that news could reach everyone. There are still so many people that are not online. There are many people who during this pandemic, they didn't have access to the news, if you will, unless it's in writing. And so making it more accessible to cross all boards, I think that would be something I'd like to see.
Okay, thank you. April?
Okay, I've thought about that a lot. I did a student newspaper at Camden High for 2 or 3 years recently because I wanted to hear the kids' voices and they were really compelling. The first person stuff they wrote about their lives was especially like, wow. But I would like to see more of that kind of thing. I would like to see more of us going into schools and working with kids in that way. I get criticized in Camden sometimes, like, oh, I'm trying to tell someone else's story. But it would be great to be listening to the kids telling those stories. So I would support more of us doing those things in the schools because that was really tough. I mean, it's just not something that was done much in Camden, or it was done at all. And I was lucky to get one issue out each of the years that I did it, but I think it's important. So.
Just a quick follow-up to you, April, and because I want to make sure I'm understanding you. You're talking about, making journalism part of a curriculum, school-wide, right?
Right. Like it was what was really eye-opening, I think, was one of the years that I did. Yeah, and I taught the kids an elective journalism class, and we did a newspaper. We went over and partnered with the Cherry Hill kids to get the newspaper laid out, and like their setup was incredible over there. It was like very state of the art, and they had everything. And yeah, so I would think things like that would be great for kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think in that, when you're teaching journalism, you're also getting across your English competency, right? Your writing core competency, your critical analysis and social studies core competency. So there's a lot of ways to cover your core curriculums within the context of journalism. Kenny, what do you think? What's the future of journalism, and what role do you want to play in it?
I also agree with bringing in young people to learn the craft of journalism. I speak as someone who was on the high school newspaper and as part of a journalism project in the DMV, the DC area, for those who are not familiar. I also want to throw out there that I would love to see us go back to the future in some ways, and On the Media touches on this. At one point, newsrooms were really blue collar. You had people who came from working class backgrounds, and that somehow has shifted over to more of a white collar background and elite schools and practicing journalism. I would love to, and I would also like to bring in people who may not have gone to J school. I didn't go to J school, and I think I've done fairly well. But people who have backgrounds in blue collar work or history, something to give more of a worldview and more of an experience. Black suburban kid here, but it would be great if we had more people from the inner city, white and black, even people white and black who aren't affluent or doesn't fit that suburbanite mold. And I would love to bring in more people who breaks what we know as journalists, who follows a certain script of going to a certain school or having a certain background, and really have a newsroom that is by the people and for the people.
Thank you for that. You know, Kenny, I think what we heard, and Terry, coming to you in just a second. You know, Kenny, what I've heard from you is kind of what I've heard throughout the day, but even also what I've heard in the last few months of just talking to people about journalism is that it just became way too elite and way too disconnected from the people that it actually serves, and it just doesn't seem like a tactile thing that people can touch and interact with and facilitate with. It seems something that's being given to them, but not something they can give back to. So I appreciate the context you gave. You know, Terry, you're part of creating the future of journalism as a grassroots content creator who on your own as an independent is providing timely news and information to the residents of Willingboro. What do you see as the future of news? And I mean, you're already playing a role in it, but what more do you want to do?
Well, I absolutely am doing the best I can to play that role and to do as much as I possibly can to build here in my area. But one thing I can do, I want to agree with my panelists who said that introducing the younger generations is an intricate part of the future of news. I definitely agree with that, but I also want to say that I would like to see us using the power of the media to be more solution minded. I want to see more of putting news information out that actually not just puts it out to show the information and to build our platforms and to get numbers and get many people watching, but when we put this information out, what does it tell the community and how can the community get involved to help in this particular area? More solution minded to where we can actually come up with ideas that will help. I'm showing you this information to let you know this is an area where we need attention and where we need assistance, and this is what you can do to assist. That's where I would like to see news to head in that direction.
Thank you for that. I love that you guys all spoke about bringing in the youth. We have 3 minutes left in this section, and I want to give you guys a chance to, for a lot of the residents who are watching today and the wanting to connect with you and thinking about all these collaborations, what's the best way to contact you, and what projects are you most interested in collaborating on residents with? April, I'll start with you.
I think they all know how to contact me because I get contacted constantly.
Shout out your Facebook page one more time for everybody.
Okay, Camden, NJ : a spirit invincible. So I get messages. I get contacted more on social media, I think, than any other way. Although a lot of people have my phone number too. So yeah, I'm out. I'm pretty easy to reach.
Thank you for that. Miguel, how can people contact you?
I'm more interested in multimedia projects. So if anyone has any idea, you can contact me. My email is 1997 Miguel Martinez, that's my name, @gmail.com. I'm also on Instagram at photo.by.miguel. So you can find me there as well.
Thank you. Terry?
I'm interested in seeing more of anything that produces positivity. I want to see those milestones and different things that just bring a positive vibe to the community and to news media. I can be reached on social media platforms at BoroTV US. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I can also be emailed directly at terrym@borotv.us.
Thank you. And BoroTV, we're going to get you guys more plugged into what we're doing here and integrating you in our coverage. So I can promise you that.
Thank you.
Kenny?
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
All right. I could be reached directly by email. It's kburns, Burns is spelled BURNS, @WHYY.org. You can also find that email address on my Twitter handle, PKB News. That's P as in Paul, K as in Kenneth, Burns, BURNS, News, which is also good on Instagram as well.
Thank you for that. And finally, Dr. Amy Dean.
Can be found at Amy Dean on Instagram and Amy Dean7 at Faith in Action. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry McCollum, BoroTV. Miguel Martinez, freelance news photographer in Camden. Kenny Burns, WHYY South Jersey reporter. April Saul, freelance Camden reporter. And Dr. Amy Dean, WHYY community curator for Willingboro. Thank you guys all for participating. Your contributions were invaluable. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.